私を殺すため？
そうだ。お前が世界を滅ぼす前に。
Welcome back to Nico Robin Character Analysis Series for Water 7 Part 6. Tonight's part or episode is pretty interesting, honestly, and there's really a whole lot for me to say, so that's why I wanted it to be its own entire video. So let's get into it because I want to talk about it. We cut back to Robin and Iceberg, and this is where the majority of this chapter focuses on. It's 10 pages, but there's a lot that is revealed, and to break it down, so we'll go over it in detail. Iceberg is surprised to see Robin, and the way he talks to her comes across as if he's personally seen her before. Which obviously he has, but the impression I get from Iceberg here is that it's someone who is eager to see someone and wanting to meet them for a very long time. But Iceberg knows a lot and has some major insider knowledge about her that no one else in the public has. Robin replying, "Have we met before?" really does indicate this feeling based on what Iceberg says. It could be something as simple as Robin being sassy here, because obviously she has seen him before and even mentioned that just a few pages ago. I would like to think it's just her being snarky, but I get the idea Robin is just genuinely curious if they met at some point in time, just based on her reaction. I also think that question mark and exclamation point panel before Robin's comment really punctuates her point of curiosity. Even the dark shading around her eyes are gone, which was there in the last shot of her face. At least in this moment, this panel shows her being a bit sincere in her comment, because Iceberg does talk to her as if they met before and she doesn't recall it. And the shading can completely depend on just the position of her head, the angle, do the shadows make a whole lot of sense with that certain angle, so I am not an expert on that, but it is interesting that in that particular shot, her dark shadows are gone. And the lack of dark shadows there may reflect that, which I believe her reply is coming from some kind of genuine place. At least that's how it is in the manga. The anime is definitely a little bit different because it adds an extra line of Robin saying, "Do you want an autograph?" Which is definitely way more snarkier of an approach. But the manga definitely keeps it very, very tame, which should certainly raise an eyebrow just on that alone because Robin is absurdly careful. So careful in not being caught, her wanted bounty poster hasn't been updated in 20 years, which for context, a physical person needs to capture an image of them so Robin of all people will know if she's being tailed by someone. While naturally Iceberg has never seen Robin personally, except for the night before, he knows a lot about her as we'll see. But he mentions it that he's always wanted to meet her. Robin is seen with a question mark speech bubble as Iceberg goes into his pocket, unsure of what he's about to do. As we now see Iceberg, he looks like the villain with his eyes darkened as Robin is now realizing what he's about to do. They both pull out their guns as Robin knew exactly what he was trying to accomplish, and had the reaction time to act quick enough, even sprouting 2 extra arms to hold their guns. Which that alone is a really cool visual of Robin wielding 4 guns, since it's a thing she never really has done before or since. And it's the first time that she used her powers in this arc, so we'll keep a tally of that because that'll be a fun ongoing trend to do. But Robin acting quick enough to have 4 guns ready compared to Iceberg's 1 gives her a chance to survive this possible shootout if Iceberg really did indeed try to shoot her. Which shows again how quick on her literal heels she could be in any situation. Those were probably the weapons she was going to use once the signal was ready, so she absolutely planned on giving Iceberg a literal shower of bullets assumingly if that occurred. Which, considering he survived multiple gunshots in the previous night, I don't know if it's necessary to be that prepared or not since he's not at full health now, but she probably wanted to be extra thorough in making sure he dies and keeps this wish that she wants to fulfill. As they point their guns at each other, Robin replies to Iceberg's comment of always wanting to meet her and says, "So you can kill me," and he says, "That's right, before you destroy the whole world." This line alone can recontextualize everything we knew about Iceberg's feelings towards Robin all the way back to when we first see him, and the clues hidden in plain sight now knowing that he wanted her dead. The first time Iceberg interacts with the Straw Hat crew is in chapter 326, and after he goes on about all the information he knows about them, the next page we get is this very odd panel of an up-close shot of his eye as he says, "I see." This panel now in retrospect, it's likely possible he believes this is his best chance to become the hero in his eyes and stop Robin himself. And in that moment thought that this would be the best chance to enact this. It could possibly explain why he's overly friendly with the Straw Hat crew, so he can eventually get close to Robin to kill her. It's never stated outright directly, but does seem to be on his mind. The other clue to this is later he asks Luffy if there's a girl named Nico Robin on his ship. He should know this information already, but he's wanting to be absolutely sure that she's with this group. It's a very small panel, but it is another clue of him being interested in Robin once again. I love how it's all subtly set up, and it makes a lot of sense in how it's presented. He believes Robin will destroy the world, and we get another big reveal that since antiquity, which is another word for ancient times, that searching for and researching and decoding the poneglyphs has been classified by the government as a high global crime. For how long exactly this is seen as a crime is yet to be shown, but one would assume around the Void Century 800 years ago is likely when this became a crime. But we get more information on what Robin is doing or wanting to accomplish in her life. Her ultimate goal, which was shown in Alabasta, which is to learn about the true history of the world, which is now shown to be a crime to do so. Which can already give you a clue as to why she broke down and cried in that scene in Alabasta, as it may possibly pertain to that. But even as Iceberg says she'll destroy the world, Robin begins to sweat, which is the first time during this conversation she gets anxious and loses her calm and collected self that she had prior. Obviously, based on the exclamation points, she is surprised at Iceberg saying this, and that he knows about all that. Iceberg says to her that you must know that, referring to searching for the poneglyphs to be a crime, which naturally she knows very well about that, and the consequences of looking into them. Even Robin is rather amazed he knows about the poneglyphs, since the only other person Robin has met that has known the existence of them was Crocodile that we know of up to this point in the story. While knowing about their existence isn't a crime, but the only person who could decipher the writing is her. This is also a big revelation and important to bring up, because up to this point in the story, we just simply never knew this about her. This line is another big reveal that may have been a theory at one point, that Robin is the only one that can read these stones. In Alabasta, Crocodile wanted to borrow her power of reading the poneglyph for his Utopia plan. In Skypiea, the Shandians were amazed that anyone could read the poneglyph. Though it's never outright stated Robin is the only one alive that can read them, there were clues in the story that were certainly there from the start. Which does beg the question, why is she the only one that can decipher them? We'll get to that answer soon enough, which I don't dare spoil yet. One can make the assumption that Roger, seemingly at least at this point in the story, we are led to believe that he could read and write poneglyph language, and given he's the most famous pirate of all time, I suppose you could make the guess that anything to do with Roger would be a crime for the government, even for the poneglyphs, which are a key to find the One Piece or the final island, as well to get the true context of the world. Which I would imagine when Robin first joined, people questioned what kind of role she would be used for. Skypiea expands on that, and now in Water 7, we see the threat of pursuing that knowledge to be presumably wrong. The theories of what are on these poneglyphs are yet to be fully revealed, because it must be something the world government doesn't want people to know for some reason. So far in the story, there are only 2 poneglyphs we get to see up to this point. Those are the ones with the information about Pluton Alabasta, and the location of an ancient weapon that was named Poseidon, and of its location, which Robin doesn't reveal of back in Skypiea. Another big reveal is Iceberg saying this is why the government put such a high bounty on her head, even though at the time she was just an 8-year-old girl, and she's the only one in the world who can reactivate the ancient weapons. This conflicts with the information we previously knew about Robin and why she had a high bounty to start, which was originally revealed in Alabasta that she blew up ships as a child, and now we're getting Iceberg's reasoning for a bounty. So which one is correct? This is definitely something in the story that it wants to point out, because now there's some definite confusion. Robin as well is impressed that even he knew about the ancient weapons, which that information as far as we know is not known to the public, or at least very few people know about, which lets us in how much Iceberg is aware of such a thing, and he's not just some typical mayor, but one that knows way more than you would expect, which clues us in that much more why the government is interested in him so much. He says that CP9 is an actual organization, which was a surprise to him based on this line, as he likely thought it wasn't real up until now. So when he mentioned CP9 earlier, he must have realized it's truly real in that moment. Which for him to realize that is likely very easily explained that Kokoro probably told him about this. Iceberg and her go to the bar often and talk, so she likely expressed worry about this group coming for him. So it's not a shock he comes to realize that this group does exist. Kokoro even mentioned this to Frankie earlier, so it lines up pretty well and makes a lot of sense, which again is just super well done and very tightly written. Iceberg calls it out perfectly that Robin has already left the Straw Hats, which we know she has and is working with the government. Even he calls it a strange move for her to do, considering that she's been chased by the government for decades, but he doesn't care to think about it any deeper than that, or fully understand why she's doing this, and it doesn't concern him. Which is once again a good reminder that not only is Straw Hats finding her to leave the crew bizarre, but even Iceberg feels the same way about it too, really heightens the big mystery of why Robin is doing this. And even the story is pointing it out with this panel and mentioning her and the government clearly don't get along, which was brilliantly foreshadowed in Alabasta, and now we get a bit more of a clue of why she feels this way in their earlier conversation, but it even leaves more questions of why she's doing this if it's already established why she dislikes the government so much. Iceberg continues to lecture Robin that through decoding the poneglyphs the weapon is activated. It won't matter who possesses it if it's good or evil. It will all be the same result. You can't expect these weapons to bring peace to mankind. The world will be destroyed. The evils of the past should not be reawakened. Before we go further, I do like to point out, Iceberg is still under the impression that Robin is an evil person, but I do appreciate the fact he's doing his damnedest to reason with her, trying his best to make her understand the dangers that these weapons are, because he thinks she isn't aware of what she's doing possibly, at least in Iceberg's opinion. Even despite he wants to kill her, he truly feels this way about the weapons, and while we've never seen what they're able to do, how Iceberg describes the rest of the weapons being activated here tells you more than enough how dangerous these weapons are. The literal world is at stake here. Just on some of this information alone, this is some massive risk and world-ending stakes on the line. We aren't talking about the loss of a kingdom or an island. The entire planet is at stake here, which up to this point is the biggest amount of danger the series has really gone into. His points are very understandable and he really does feel so sympathetic here. And having Robin be seemingly the villain here makes it so tough to watch as we've been with her for so long. So it really does make you question her motives and actions here so well, and having a whole panel focus on her as Iceberg says the whole world will be destroyed with the dark shading over her really gives you this cold impression that she just doesn't care about that. It portrays her in such a bad light and makes you really question everything you know about Robin for just a moment. Having the roles switch up here where Iceberg feels more like the hero is a great decision, even if he's the one that believes killing her will save the world. It must be a monumental burden he has to deal with, because even when actually faced with doing this, he's still trying to rationalize this fact for the betterment of the human race. I think if Robin hadn't brought up her guns to Iceberg, he would have killed her right then and there. But once there was a stalemate and he was on the losing end of his one gun versus Robin's 4, he likely thought at that point in time the best approach is trying to knock some sense into her. The internal logic and thought process of these actions and reactions is just superb writing. As evil he believes Robin to be, Iceberg isn't a heartless monster who thinks killing is right in general, but this is probably the one rare circumstance where he feels like it's the only thing he can do. And given his upbringing and what he's been told about Robin by Tom, I really don't blame him for feeling this way. He's been a victim of the government and the false propaganda that's been spread about her, making her look evil and not knowing of her true character. Robin replies back to Iceberg's plea that he's right. She thinks that herself. And in hindsight and retrospect, Robin is being honest here. There's no doubt about it. We can easily confirm this under multiple instances that Robin heavily dislikes these weapons being awakened. In Alabasta, when she read the poneglyph, she realized it had the information about the Pluton. Instead of telling Crocodile about it, she lied to him. She was willing to die to make sure she didn't tell him, so it wouldn't have the chance to be awakened. In Skypiea, when the Poseidon is mentioned on the poneglyph, another ancient weapon, she's disappointed what's written on it as she wasn't interested in that at all. So with all that prior knowledge, she's 100% honest here with Iceberg in sharing that same opinion, which can also potentially rule out that she's doing this mission with CP9 to get what Iceberg has for her own selfish gain as well. There's just a lot more to why she's doing this than you would imagine. Robin continues to comment that he's way out of line, and he doesn't know her at all, and has no right to tell her how she should research history. This naturally should come to no surprise, but it shows how uninformed Iceberg is of Robin. She's not even really angry at him saying all this stuff to her and saying she's going to destroy the world. She remains shockingly calm and collected here among hearing such awful things. Which sadly to her, she's been so used to being name-called everything in the book that she's not even bothered by it anymore. But once again, everything Robin is saying here is her being very honest. Iceberg doesn't know anything about her. We know she genuinely loves history. It's something that excites her, as we see in Skypiea. In the entire fight with Yama, she was being worried about the location being damaged. Even during Anel's attack, she's upset with the ruins being destroyed. So having that prior history with her, we know what she's truly motivated in. And that's certainly not world destruction. She clearly has deep respect for the past and not damaging it. So obviously this can rule out too that she's doing all this for some kind of end of the world goal. It feels stupid to bring up because we know Robin so well to this point, but I do want to check off all the boxes here. Iceberg says that he's in the same position as she is. He holds the blueprints of the ancient world, the Pluton. Robin is shocked to hear this. Now this is another big reveal in the story that this is what the government is after, and the name of the weapon is finally dropped here. Before we really get into this, I like to talk about Robin being surprised by hearing it. Now it does make sense for her to be shocked about this. When CP9 were telling Robin that Tom had it originally, they never really explained what this thing of Tom's that they wanted that they believe Iceberg has in his possession now. It's never brought up, other than you have to steal it. That, and she was told by CP9 that Iceberg constantly tells Corey that he's innocent and he doesn't have it. So she's completely under the impression he doesn't have this. So she probably expected him to lie about not having it. So yeah, this completely shocks her for a good reason. And it's another added layer of surprise because she heard of the Pluton before, so she fully understands the fear Iceberg has as well with this. Naturally, if this ancient weapon sounds familiar, it should be. This is the same weapon Crocodile was after in Alabasta. Now, as a refresher on what the Pluton is and what we used to know prior to this chapter, I'll go into it. In chapter 193, Crocodile explains that in one shot, it can vaporize an entire island in smithereens. Named for the god of death, it was the most terrible weapon of the ancient world. He believed it was sleeping somewhere in Alabasta, but even he was not totally sure if his existence is truly real. That is pretty much all the information we have on it. Robin does know about the Pluton on the poneglyph that was in Alabasta, but it's not until Wano, almost 20 plus years later, Robin reveals any bit of what that poneglyph said in regards to it. We're going to get even more of its origins revealed here by Iceberg. He reveals that Pluton is the name of a battleship that was built on Water 7 a long time ago. All new information on the Pluton we previously didn't know of before. We didn't know it was a battleship, and we did know it was built on Water 7, which is the first we're hearing about it. Her shock of hearing this makes sense too, since it indicates that the poneglyph in Alabasta didn't mention the origin of it being a battleship, and it originally being made of Water 7. Based on what Wano suggests, it only mentioned of its location. The multiple exclamation points above her head in that panel really solidifies that statement that everything Iceberg's saying is a true shock to her. Iceberg describes that the weapon they made was too powerful, and the ancient shipbuilding engineers thought an opposing force would be needed in the unlikely event that it went out of control. So they passed the blueprints down through the generations, and the government wants them. If we didn't know that this weapon could be recreated with these blueprints. This line is a subtle clue that there apparently exists a Pluton or something similar somewhere in the world. Now Robin should react in some way to this, but in fact she knows this already, but we as an audience would never know at this point in time, leaving this small clue to be revealed in Wano later. Iceberg says a lot of things that we know already, but it bears being repeated for how and why these blueprints are so important, and how much the government wants them now. Naturally, this is also a lot on his hands to make sure the blueprints are safe and don't go into the wrong hands. Iceberg makes the comment that she's helping them without knowing all this, which shocks him. Which this is very true since Robin was surprised about all this when it was being told to her that he has the ancient weapon Pluton blueprints. Now why CP9 didn't tell her all this information about the blueprint to start is something I wondered about. Did they just not care to tell her because she's going to go along with this no matter what, so that detail just didn't matter to them? I feel like even if they told her everything, she still would agree to this no matter what. So I believe the likely case is they just didn't care to reveal that information to her, which I'm surprised Robin never asked for more details on it, but maybe she thought the less she knows, the easier it'll be for her to go through with this, so she doesn't get too personally attached to the situation. The other possibility could be that she just didn't care what CP9 wanted. She was going to go along with this no matter what, and that may be the most simple explanation for it. This is our first small little hint or clue about how little they care about her despite wanting her and not really treating Robin with much respect, and at least informing her on what's really going on, which gets more evil, twisted, and sinister later on. Another bombshell is we get the mention of O'Hara, which again based on Robin's exclamation point in that panel indicates she's surprised Iceberg knew about this too. The placement of that exclamation point is perfect since it has this dramatic pause in the name Iceberg was going to reveal. This is again another hint of her past being revealed here and that she escaped an incident 20 years ago and is the only one that remains from this. We don't really know the significance of O'Hara and what it truly means at this point in the story, which I'm sure leads to a whirlwind of ideas on what exactly happened in this panel that it sets up, since we never knew about this with Robin before. Which talking about this alone gives me chills because it's establishing something extraordinarily bad that must have happened to her. We as well learn what Thomas told Iceberg about Robin, and where he gets his hatred of her based on the things that he told him. And that these people on O'Hara were bad, and Iceberg even calls them demons because Robin shares the same ideals as them. Based on the very next panel, we get an angry up-close shot of Robin's eye. It's intentionally very clever to have these exact reaction shots over these two panels, as it makes you question which one Robin is getting angry at. It puts you on edge. It should be very obvious to say that she's angry he's going to stop her. It's possible she may think if she dies here, it'll mess up the wish she wants fulfilled. It could also mean she is very angry about Iceberg calling her fellow researchers demons. But keeping it vague until the reveal later is just extremely clever to do this, which is why I harp on the panel placement because there's a reason for everything in how Oda structures out these panels. It would be honestly easy if you're reading this for the very first time to see Robin being angry Iceberg is wanting to stop her, just because as you're reading the speech bubble, you're reading right to left. And the next visual is Robin's eye being angry after that speech bubble. How I usually read manga, and maybe it applies differently to other people, but for me, I usually follow the speech bubble first, and then the image after that. Which the way these panels are structured, it really does make you think that's exactly what she's reacting to. It still plays out Robin looking more evil here, in the idea of being stopped, when we don't know her true goals yet, and we're just assuming she just wants him dead for very little reason up to this point. Seeing she didn't even know what Iceberg had before she went along with this. Which definitely makes you question what is her motive here. If she didn't know what Iceberg had from the start, then why did she go along with CP9? Which again, how it constantly keeps playing on your expectations on just what exactly is going on, Robin's true motives, it just makes everything so interesting to figure out what is happening. The mystery of Robin's true motivation is the biggest backbone of this arc. These two mirror panels bring up a lot of mystery and assumptions, and it's constantly playing with your emotions on what Robin is thinking and feeling here, and the two things that she could be angry about. It's just so well done. Iceberg says now that the government is aware that the blueprints exist, it would be better to simply burn them, but doing that won't be enough because Robin's alive, because there's still a chance she might find a way to reactivate the weapon. What's really good about their whole interaction up to this point and how it just slowly ramps up the tension, setting the stage and letting this organically build up. It starts off rather calm. Well, as calm as things can be when he's shot and both are pointing guns at each other, can be relatively speaking. Now Iceberg is getting more and more angry and yelling, and even the speech bubbles reflect this right at the end, as they're no longer circular and they're more jagged and just gives off this angry impression. Robin gets more and more anxious and angry over the things he's saying and begins to sweat. Her expression begins to twist as Iceberg threatens she'll reactivate the weapon because she's still alive. It's just a brilliant way to ramp up the entire conversation, and the momentum of it really makes you, the reader, so incredibly tense reading this as it just escalates more and more. Even though Robin said that she disagrees with reactivating the weapons, since she's working with the government, that just doesn't matter. He thinks regardless of how she feels, the weapons will be activated. And the phrasing of "there's still a chance" I think suggests this more than enough. No matter what, the government will do whatever it takes to force her to activate these weapons against her will, and he knows this. Iceberg, through his backstory, as the arc will reveal later on, he knows what the government is willing to do to get what they want. He's lived that before, and he thinks he knows how this will all play out as well, given his experience with them. Robin realizes this has gone on far enough, and Iceberg is about to shoot her more than likely just based on how he was getting. Which harkens back to what she said to Chopper, that she can read people well. Not to say that reading the room in this moment is an accomplishment, since I feel it's obvious, but Robin is typically good at this a lot, and it's another reminder of it here. She restrains him by taking his gun, grabbing his neck, and pushing him to the ground as she has her hands around his neck. In an intense panel, we see her lunge forward as she points the gun to his head and says, "Is that all you want to say before you die?" It's once again a great flowing series of panels as the previous page ends, and you glance over to the next one, and you see these speed lines showing the urgency to restrain him in a quick manner. The intensity and even the fear she has feel present in this, just based on how much she restrains him here. Getting the oddly hot visual out of the way that Robin is on top of Iceberg like this, and I must say Iceberg is one lucky man. This does show how she was going overboard and making sure he's held down. She didn't really have to lay on top of him like this, when her arms would have for sure been enough as it is. The way I saw it is that she was a bit afraid. Maybe not by a whole lot, but clearly enough to absolutely make sure he's held down, and laying on top of him makes her think that that would be enough. Not only did she think quick on her feet to use her powers to get the gun off his hand, but to pin him down the floor as well. But even now she's holding the one gun in both hands, prioritizing making sure he can't escape. Now Robin's threat does sound pretty cool and badass, but she'll be going against CP9's wishes, killing him early when the signal isn't called yet. So I take this more as a threat, but she wouldn't actually kill him in this moment unless ordered to, especially with so much being on the line to fulfill her wish, that if she dared to kill him early, it may jeopardize this wish of hers. I keep hinting at that, but she dares not break that under any circumstance. She says that she begs to differ. Even if he had killed her, his blueprints would have been stolen and the result being the same. He wants to say one more thing. They're the ones that have fallen for his ruse. We cut back to Polly, who is beaten and bloodied up as he's riddled with holes as he falls over. He mutters that Iceberg told him to run away at once. Just throw it away and run, because the blueprints are fake. Which surprises them as the chapter ends. Not only is this another big twist, but naturally Robin wasn't expecting it too based on her reaction, and the speech bubble accompanying it thereafter. But now it questions everything Iceberg said in regards to Robin possibly. On multiple occasions he kept saying that he had the blueprint, and he was just lying about it the whole time now. So if he was lying about that, it does make you question if everything else he said about Robin is untrue prior. Is all of it accurate? Is some of it false? Is this all just coming from some crazy conspiracy theorist? Or what is really going on? It makes you unsure of what to really believe. Just for a moment you think you're getting all the information, but now it's up in the air for how accurate it is. It's a wonderful guessing game making you not totally sure, which obviously in retrospect this all gets revealed later, but I remember when I first saw this for the first time being unsure of what to make of Iceberg's claim about Robin, simply because if he was lying about the blueprints, then who's to say he lied about Robin here as well. But seeing how Robin reacts to this information almost all but confirms that some of these things Iceberg says here has to be true. But what stuff Iceberg says is right and wrong will be shown later, but there's just a lot of things being mentioned here. The 10 big key elements that we learn here are: research into poneglyphs is a global high crime. Robin is the only person who can decipher the writing. Why Robin's bounty is so high. She can reactivate the ancient weapons through reading the poneglyphs. Pluton is a battleship. That ship was built on Water 7 long ago, presumably during the Void Century, the implication that the Pluton already exists, and the blueprints were made to oppose it if it reawakens again. The mention of O'Hara will be important later. Robin escaped O'Hara from some incident, and the last one that Robin shares the same ideals as the demons on O'Hara. It presents these insane lore drops with a hint of uncertainty for how much of these are indeed to be true. But what makes One Piece so amazing and special is it will pay off all of this in the best of ways. And there's just simply so much more greatness to come in this arc soon enough. In retrospect, Iceberg is right on pretty much everything he says here. There's only one thing that he's wrong on, which I am so excited to eventually talk about. And I think this is where the video will end. It was quite a video. That's it for me. Next part will be coming out whenever. This is just a dream to talk about this. It's so fun. It's so interesting. And honestly, it's just some of the best writing for a female character I think I've ever seen. Maybe ever. I don't know. It's just boggles my mind just how much time and effort was put into her arc. It's unbelievable. So I'm looking forward to talking more about it. We'll see how much ground I cover next video. Also, too, I always make community posts on my updates on my progress of the videos, whether that's talking about how far I made along in the script process, the recording process, the editing process, all of that. So if you're curious on the update of the series, on which part I'm working on, and how it's going, I usually will be posting that in the community tab. So always keep an eye out for that. And that's really it. So I'll see you all next video. I'll see you all later, and have a good day.